Ladies and gentlemen, today, I have something absolutely unbelievable to share with you. If you've been following the Roloff family for years, from little people, big world to their social media adventures, get ready, because this might be one of the most dramatic twists yet. Yes, you heard that right. Audrey Roloff, the woman we've always seen as Jeremy Roloff's devoted wife, the mother of his children and a voice for strong family values, is suddenly making headlines for something no one saw coming. And that is her new relationship flash that's sending shockwaves across fans, followers, and even the Roloff family themselves. But here's the twist. Jeremy Roloff, the man who once called her his forever teammate, is not okay. Sources close to the family say he's been deeply upset, confused, and even broken after discovering what's really going on. So, what really happened between Audrey and Jeremy? Is this a misunderstanding, or are we seeing the beginning of a shocking new chapter in their lives? Let's go deep. For years, Audrey and Jeremy Roloff were considered the golden couple of the Roloff legacy. They met in college, fell in love, and built a life centered around faith, family, and authenticity. Together they wrote books, ran podcasts, and often shared their life on Instagram, full of dreamy sunset photos, farm life moments, and faith-driven captions. Everything looked perfect. But as we all know, social media perfection often hides a lot of real-life tension. Behind those smiling photos and heart emojis, insiders now claim that the Roloff marriage has been under strain for months. Between business disagreements, parenting stress, and conflicting personal goals, things were not as peaceful as they appeared. Now here's where the story takes a turn. A few weeks ago, fans began noticing something odd on Audrey's Instagram stories. Subtle changes. A different tone. A few cryptic quotes about growth, letting go, and finding peace even when it hurts. Then, there was a photo. It wasn't anything obvious, just Audrey at a coffee shop laughing. But eagle-eyed fans spotted someone sitting across from her. The reflection in the window showed a man. Not Jeremy. Speculation went wild. Who was he? A friend? A business partner? Or something more? At the same time, Jeremy Roloff went unusually quiet online. Fans who follow him know that Jeremy is normally active, posting about family projects, the farm, and their small business ventures. But suddenly, nothing. No family posts. No stories with Audrey. No couple content. Just silence. Until one post appeared on his Instagram story, a simple black background with one line. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. That was it. No tags. No explanations. But fans instantly knew something big was going on. And then came the confirmation. A source, reportedly close to the Roloffs, spoke to a local Oregon outlet and revealed that Audrey had been emotionally connecting with a new person in her life. This person, described as a creative entrepreneur, had been working on a joint project with Audrey. What started as collaboration apparently grew into something more personal. The insider said, Audrey didn't plan for this. She's been feeling distant from Jeremy for a while. They've been living like teammates, not lovers. When she met this new person, it reminded her of what passion felt like again. Whoa, that's major. And while Audrey hasn't publicly confirmed any of it, her recent behavior, the cryptic quotes, solo outings, and absence of family photos, all seem to align with that claim. According to friends, Jeremy is devastated. He feels betrayed, embarrassed, and confused. He reportedly told a close friend that he never saw this coming, and that Audrey just changed overnight. Apparently, they had been arguing for weeks about priorities. Audrey wanted to expand her personal projects and spend more time outside their family brand, while Jeremy wanted to focus on the family and rebuild their connection. One insider said, he thought they were just going through a rough patch. But then he found messages that made him question everything. Yes, messages. Not romantic, at least not directly. But emotional enough to make Jeremy realize that Audrey's heart might already be drifting away. Now, the public isn't blind. Fans who've been following the couple for years are noticing the cracks. Comment sections are filled with speculation. Everything from "Are Audrey and Jeremy okay?" to "Why are they never posting together anymore?" And of course, the internet does what it does best. It connects dots, even when the dots are blurry. Some fans believe the new person Audrey's linked with might be someone from the Oregon creative scene, a photographer or podcaster she's been collaborating with. Others think it's all being blown out of proportion. But here's the thing, Jeremy's reactions aren't helping. His latest posts sound heartbroken. One of them read, "When trust is shaken, it's not easy to stand strong." Another said, "Not every love story ends the way it began." Heartbreaking, right? After days of rumors, Audrey finally addressed something, but not directly. On her Instagram story, she posted a photo of a sunset with a caption that read, "Sometimes growth means breaking the version of yourself that everyone expects you to be." Fans took that as a clear message. She's moving on, emotionally or otherwise. And in one of her podcast episodes, she subtly mentioned re-evaluating her relationships and finding peace in unexpected places. She didn't name names. But she didn't deny it either. As if that wasn't enough, sources say the Roloff family is divided. Amy Roloff, Jeremy's mom, is reportedly heartbroken for her son. She's always been close to both Audrey and Jeremy, but this has left her stunned. Meanwhile, Matt Roloff, Jeremy's dad, has reportedly advised him to stay strong and think before reacting publicly. Even Zach and Tori Roloff, Jeremy's brother and sister-in-law, are keeping their distance, not wanting to get pulled into the emotional storm. It's a full-on family crisis. At the end of the day, these are real people, not just TV personalities. Jeremy is said to be spending more time alone at the farm, avoiding public appearances, and focusing on his kids. Friends say he's trying to keep it together, but those who know him best can tell, he's struggling. Meanwhile, Audrey seems to be embracing a new kind of independence. She's been seen attending social events without Jeremy, collaborating on new ventures, and even posting motivational messages about self-love and moving forward. The emotional distance between them feels permanent. So what now? Are Audrey and Jeremy heading for separation? Is this just a temporary emotional fallout? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a new chapter, one that will completely redefine how fans see them? As of now, neither side has confirmed a breakup. But those closest to them say things may never go back to the way they were. And if Audrey's new relationship flash continues to grow, this could very well be one of the biggest relationship scandals the Roloff world has seen in years. We're just getting started, folks. In part 2, we'll dig deeper into who this mystery person might be, what really pushed Audrey and Jeremy apart, and how the Roloff family is handling the fallout behind closed doors. Because trust me, this story is far from over. Welcome back, everyone. If you've been following part 1 of this unbelievable story, you already know that Audrey Roloff's life has taken a shocking new turn. A mysterious new relationship flash that has left her husband, Jeremy Roloff, absolutely shattered. In part 1, we uncovered the clues, the cryptic messages, the quiet Instagram stories, the heartbreaking silence from Jeremy. But today, we go deeper. Because now, the truth is starting to come out. And let me tell you, it's even more shocking than anyone could have imagined. The week following those cryptic posts was tense. For fans, it was like watching a love story crumble in slow motion. For the Roloff family, it was emotional chaos. Behind the scenes, Jeremy had reportedly moved into a separate guest house on their Oregon property, needing space to clear his head. Audrey stayed in the main house with the kids, maintaining her usual routine. But the atmosphere was cold. One source said, they were living under the same sky, but not in the same world anymore. Jeremy was heartbroken but silent. Audrey looked calm but distant. It was the silence before a storm. And then, it happened. The name. The man that everyone had been whispering about finally surfaced in the media. His name? Eli Martin. A 34-year-old entrepreneur, podcaster, and motivational speaker from Portland. Known for his creative projects centered on emotional authenticity and personal growth. Sounds familiar? It should, because those were exactly the themes Audrey had been talking about in her recent podcast episodes. Eli and Audrey had reportedly met months earlier at a local business networking event. What began as a collaboration, a possible co-hosting idea, slowly turned into something much more personal. According to one insider, they had chemistry instantly. It wasn't romantic at first, it was intellectual. But you could tell there was something electric between them. Jeremy, however, wasn't blind. He noticed the connection and confronted Audrey about it more than once. But every time, she brushed it off. "We're just working together," she reportedly told him. "You're overthinking it, Jeremy." But deep down, Jeremy felt that something had already changed. Everything came crashing down one quiet evening. According to a source close to the family, Jeremy found messages on Audrey's iPad, not overtly romantic but intimate. They talked about dreams, loneliness, and feeling understood again. One message from Audrey reportedly said, "You make me feel seen in a way I haven't felt in years." That was enough. Jeremy confronted her that night. Voices were raised. Tears were shed. Audrey didn't deny her emotional connection with Eli, but insisted nothing physical had happened. Jeremy, hurt and humiliated, packed his bags and left the house. He moved temporarily to a friend's cabin just outside Hillsboro, Oregon. Alone. Confused. Angry. The next morning, Audrey was spotted dropping her kids off at a friend's home, without her wedding ring. The media storm erupted instantly. Within hours, the internet went wild. Screenshots, theories, timelines, fans became digital detectives. Hashtags like #TeamJeremy and #PrayForTheRoloffs began trending. Audrey's comment sections filled with thousands of reactions. "How could you do this to Jeremy? Stay strong, Jeremy, she doesn't deserve you. Maybe she just needs space, don't judge yet." Some defended her, saying she deserved to find her happiness. Others accused her of betrayal. It was brutal. And through it all, Audrey stayed silent. But silence sometimes speaks louder than words. After nearly 2 weeks of speculation, Jeremy finally spoke. He posted a long, emotional message on Instagram with a photo of him sitting by a lake. The caption read, "Sometimes love isn't lost in a moment, it fades in the quiet places where we stop listening to each other. I'm not angry, just broken." He didn't mention Audrey by name. But everyone knew. The post went viral. Fans flooded the comments with support, prayers, and heartbreak. Even other TLC personalities reached out publicly, offering encouragement. That moment, right there, marked the emotional breaking point. Jeremy wasn't fighting anymore. He was grieving. Inside the Roloff family, emotions were running high. Amy Roloff, Jeremy's mom, reportedly called Audrey to express her sadness. Not anger, but disappointment. One source close to Amy said, "She told Audrey, marriage isn't easy, but you fight for it. You don't run from it." Matt Roloff, however, tried to remain neutral. He urged both sides to think of the kids first. Meanwhile, Zach and Tori Roloff, who had their own complicated history with Jeremy and Audrey, decided to stay silent publicly. But privately, they were sympathetic toward Jeremy. Tori reportedly told a friend, "We've had our disagreements with them before, but Jeremy doesn't deserve this pain." The Roloff farm, once a symbol of unity, now felt like a battlefield of silence. After weeks of rumors, Audrey finally decided to address everything in a lengthy podcast episode titled, "Finding Myself Again." Her voice was calm, almost trembling at times. She didn't mention Eli by name, but she admitted she had been emotionally lost, and that she had connected deeply with someone who reminded her of her worth. She said, "I never wanted to hurt Jeremy. He's been my best friend for years. But I realized I had become a version of myself that didn't feel alive anymore. I needed to feel understood, even if that meant walking through pain." Her words divided fans again. Some saw it as honesty. Others saw it as justification. Jeremy reportedly listened to the episode, and later told a friend that it felt like losing her twice, once in real life and again in her words. Then came the moment no one expected. Audrey was spotted in downtown Portland, having coffee with Eli Martin. They weren't holding hands. They weren't kissing. But they were smiling, talking, and looking like two people who had long since stopped hiding. Within minutes, the photo hit Reddit and fan groups. It was everywhere. Headlines exploded. Audrey Roloff moves on. Jeremy's ex seen with mystery man. Roloff family shocked by public outing. For Jeremy, it was like reopening a wound that hadn't even begun to heal. He reportedly turned off his phone for days. By now, weeks had turned into months. Audrey began focusing on new projects, a solo podcast, a wellness blog, and her partnership with Eli's creative company. Jeremy, meanwhile, stayed away from the spotlight. He focused on his kids, spent time outdoors, and leaned on his family and faith. But friends say he still carries the pain deeply. One close source shared. Jeremy isn't angry anymore. He's just sad. He feels like he lost not just his wife, but his best friend, his partner, his dream. It's the kind of heartbreak you don't recover from easily. Despite their differences, Audrey and Jeremy reportedly agreed to co-parent peacefully. They've been spotted together at their children's school events, polite, but distant. Audrey even posted a heartfelt message on Mother's Day, saying, "Being a mom is the hardest and most beautiful thing I've ever done. Thankful for the love that remains, even when life changes." Jeremy responded privately, but not publicly. Insiders say he's trying to protect his children from the chaos, keeping them out of the media spotlight. Meanwhile, Eli has reportedly remained respectful and private, avoiding public appearances with Audrey for the sake of the kids. Still, the emotional damage runs deep. By late summer, rumors began circulating that Amy Roloff wanted to hold a family intervention, not to reconcile the marriage, but to encourage healing. A private dinner was reportedly held at Amy's home. Both Audrey and Jeremy attended, for the first time in months. According to one person close to the family, the night was filled with emotions. Tears. Apologies. Silence. Jeremy reportedly told Audrey, "I'll always love you, but I can't keep trying to fix something that doesn't want to be fixed." Audrey replied softly, "I never stopped loving you either. But I needed to find myself, even if it broke everything." They hugged. For the last time. That moment marked closure, painful but necessary. Today, months after the storm, both Audrey and Jeremy have begun their new paths. Jeremy is still in Oregon, focusing on fatherhood and building a small-scale family business. His recent social media posts show him smiling again, working on projects with his kids, and spending quiet evenings on the farm. His captions now carry hope instead of heartbreak. Sometimes losing something precious teaches you how to cherish what's left. As for Audrey, she continues her journey of self-discovery. Her podcast has gained a following, and though she doesn't mention Eli often, they're reportedly still close, choosing to stay low profile for now. In one of her latest episodes, she said something that perfectly sums up her mindset. Maybe love isn't about forever. Maybe it's about growing in the time we're given. Powerful words, but bittersweet. The fanbase remains divided. Some continue to support Audrey's journey, calling her brave for choosing growth. Others can't forgive her for breaking Jeremy's heart. One fan wrote, "I used to look up to them as the perfect Christian couple. Now I just see how real and fragile love can be." And maybe that's the truth. Because behind every picture-perfect marriage, there are unspoken stories of loneliness, confusion, and unmet needs. The Roloffs have simply lived theirs under the public eye. In the end, love stories don't always end with happily ever after. Sometimes, they end with growth. With acceptance. With two people walking away, not because they stopped caring, but because they finally realized they needed to love themselves too. Audrey Roloff's new relationship flash may have started a storm, but perhaps it was the spark that revealed a deeper truth, that even those who seem strongest can still fall apart, and that sometimes, heartbreak isn't failure, it's transformation. Jeremy, for his part, seems to be finding peace again. Friends say he's open to love someday, but not in a rush. He's focused on healing, one quiet sunrise at a time. And Audrey? She's learning to live freely, to forgive herself, and to rediscover who she is beyond the Roloff name. So, where does this story leave us? With lessons. With emotion. With reality. Because at the end of the day, even when hearts break and paths diverge, life keeps moving forward. Audrey and Jeremy may no longer share the same future, but they'll always share a past, a story that taught them, and all of us, that love is not just about forever. It's about the courage to be honest when forever starts to fade. This has been a story of love, loss, and the painful beauty of letting go. Until next time, stay kind, stay grounded, and remember, sometimes the hardest endings bring the truest beginnings. When love begins, it feels unbreakable. You imagine forever, shared dreams, laughter, and a future that seems written in stone. But sometimes, even the strongest hearts can drift apart. We've followed Audrey and Jeremy Roloff's journey from the early days of their fairy-tale marriage to the heartbreak that shook their family. But this final chapter, this is where the story changes from pain to healing. This is not just about what broke them. It's about how they survived. So, sit back. Because today, we're going deep into the ending no one saw coming, the aftermath, the recovery, and the legacy of a love that still echoes, even in silence. It's been 6 months since Audrey and Jeremy quietly separated. There was no official announcement, no headline saying divorce confirmed. Just silence. Audrey had moved into a small farmhouse closer to Portland. She continued working on her podcast and writing projects, while Jeremy stayed on their original property, spending most of his time with the kids and his workshop projects. And though they no longer lived together, they remained connected, not as lovers, but as two people who shared deep roots. Friends say that Jeremy would often drop by to pick up the kids, and sometimes they'd talk, not about the past, but about logistics, parenting, and life. One friend described it as two hearts that finally stopped fighting, but still couldn't stop caring. For the public, the drama had cooled down. The internet, always hungry for fresh gossip, moved on to other reality stars. But for Jeremy, the wounds were still healing. He wasn't angry anymore. He was reflective. He began journaling. Spending long evenings on the farm, watching sunsets alone, sometimes posting small glimpses of hope to his social media. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's setting yourself free. You can't rebuild the past. You can only plant something new. These weren't words for attention. They were his therapy. Meanwhile, Audrey's tone on her podcast began to shift too. At first, her episodes focused on self-discovery and letting go. But as time went on, listeners noticed something different: softness, gratitude, a kind of peace she hadn't shown before. One episode, titled "When Love Doesn't Last Forever," struck fans deeply. Audrey's voice trembled slightly as she said, "I don't see love as a failure, even if it ends. Jeremy taught me more about loyalty, patience, and faith than anyone ever could." Some chapters close, but they still shape the story. Those words, gentle, mature, and full of emotion, made even her critics pause. It was clear, she was no longer trying to defend herself. She was finally accepting everything. Now, what about Eli Martin, the man whose name first sparked the storm? Interestingly, after months of headlines, Eli quietly disappeared from the public eye. Insiders say he chose to step back from the spotlight out of respect for Audrey's family and her children. He reportedly told her, "You need time to rebuild your life, not rush into another storm." They remained friends, occasionally collaborating on projects, but the romantic spark that once connected them faded into something calmer, something platonic. In many ways, Eli had been a catalyst, the person who showed Audrey what she was missing emotionally. But he was never meant to be the next chapter. Sometimes, people enter our lives not to stay, but to awaken something we've forgotten. By late autumn, Jeremy had begun to smile again. He started new ventures, designing sustainable farm products, reconnecting with old friends, and spending long weekends with his kids. His father, Matt Roloff, became a source of strength. They'd spend hours together, repairing fences, talking about life, and reflecting on their own past mistakes. Matt reportedly told Jeremy one evening, "Son, heartbreak doesn't mean you failed. It means you cared enough to risk everything." Those words stuck. Jeremy began posting again, not about heartbreak, but about hope. One of his most liked posts read, "Sometimes we lose what we love most to find who we really are." Fans flooded the comments with messages of encouragement. Some even said they found comfort in Jeremy's openness about pain. Slowly, the The man who once seemed broken was finding strength in his vulnerability. Of course, when a family breaks, the children feel it, even if they don't fully understand. Jeremy and Audrey were careful. They never fought in front of them, never spoke badly of each other. They explained it gently. Mommy and Daddy both love you very much. We just need to live in different houses for a while. The kids adjusted surprisingly well. They spent weekends with Jeremy on the farm, running through the fields, helping feed the animals, laughing freely. During the week, they stayed with Audrey, who filled the home with warmth, art projects, and bedtime stories. Despite the distance, love was never missing. One night, Jeremy reportedly told a friend, "I may not have my marriage anymore, but when I see my kids smile, I know everything will be okay." Then came a surprise moment that melted everyone's hearts. It was Christmas, the first holiday since their separation. Instead of spending it apart, Audrey and Jeremy decided to come together, for the kids. Amy Roloff hosted a small family dinner, inviting everyone, including Audrey. When Audrey arrived, there was tension in the air, but also familiarity. Jeremy and Audrey greeted each other politely, exchanging small smiles. The kids ran around laughing, blissfully unaware of the emotional weight in the room. Later that evening, after everyone had eaten, Amy reportedly gathered the family for a quiet prayer. She said, "No matter what has happened, we are still family. Love doesn't end, it just changes shape." Tears flowed silently. After dinner, Jeremy and Audrey sat outside by the fire pit. For the first time in months, they talked, not as exes, but as old friends. Jeremy said softly, "You look happier." Audrey replied, "I'm trying. I hope you are too." They smiled, and for a moment, all the pain, the media chaos, the heartbreak, it all disappeared. It was just two people who once loved each other deeply, sharing peace under the stars. After that Christmas moment, something changed in how fans viewed them. Instead of fueling drama, people began to see the maturity in how both handled things. Audrey wasn't the villain anymore. Jeremy wasn't just the victim. They were human. Two people who grew up under cameras, who made mistakes, who learned, who forgave. Audrey later shared a heartfelt post. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means thanking the past for its lessons." That post received hundreds of thousands of likes and thousands of comments, many from women saying they related to her struggle. One wrote, "Thank you for being honest. Sometimes I feel like I'm living your story." It showed how deeply this once private family story had touched people everywhere. Meanwhile, the larger Roloff family began to heal too. Matt and Amy, once divorced themselves, saw their children's pain as a mirror of their own. They began spending more time together at family events, ensuring their grandkids never felt divided. Even Zach and Tori, who had stayed distant for months, reached out to Jeremy again. They shared photos of their kids playing together, reminding fans that while relationships can fracture, family ties can always mend. For the first time in years, the Roloffs were slowly becoming a family again, not perfect but real. By spring, Audrey had fully transformed her image. She launched a new podcast series titled Growing Through It. Instead of promoting the perfect family image she once did, she focused on real, raw conversations about faith, loss, and rebuilding after heartbreak. She invited guests who had survived breakups, divorces, and personal transformations. She didn't preach, she listened. And for the first time, people began seeing a softer, humbler version of Audrey. In one emotional episode, she said, "For so long, I tried to be perfect, the perfect wife, mom, influencer. But perfection destroyed me. Now I just want to be real." That episode alone became her most streamed yet. As for Jeremy, his transformation was quieter but just as profound. He began working on a book, not a tell-all, but a reflection on faith, fatherhood, and healing. The title? Fields of Forgiveness. In the book he wrote, "The hardest part of heartbreak isn't losing someone, it's losing the version of yourself that existed when you loved them. But once you grieve that person, you can finally become who you were meant to be." Those words touched millions. It wasn't just a story of divorce. It was a story of rediscovering purpose. Jeremy also began giving talks at men's retreats and churches, opening up about emotional pain, something many men shy away from. He told one audience, "Strength isn't pretending you're okay. It's admitting when you're not, and still choosing to stand." Applause filled the room. The man who once cried in silence was now helping others heal. Months later, on what would have been their 10th wedding anniversary, something unexpected happened. Jeremy received a handwritten letter from Audrey. No cameras. No media. Just her words. It read, "Jeremy, I know this isn't how our story was meant to go. But I want to thank you for being my first great love for our children, for teaching me grace even when I didn't deserve it. You were my home for so many years. And even though our paths are separate now, a part of me will always love the life we built. Thank you for forgiving me when I couldn't forgive myself. With love, Audrey." Jeremy didn't post it online. He kept it in his journal, as a reminder that some endings are filled not with bitterness but peace. He later told a friend, "That letter was the real closure I didn't know I needed." It's been over a year now since their quiet separation, and both Audrey and Jeremy seem content. Not perfect, not back together but whole. They've redefined what it means to love after loss. Audrey once said, "Maybe love doesn't end when people part. Maybe it changes form, from romance to respect, from pain to gratitude." And Jeremy echoed something similar on his podcast. Forgiveness doesn't erase history. It redeems it. Their story has inspired thousands who watched their highs and lows unfold in public. It reminds us that marriage isn't just about fairy tale moments. It's about growth, grace, and sometimes, letting go when it hurts most. 1 year later, at a family reunion on the Roloff farm, they came together again. This time, not as husband and wife, but as co-parents, as friends, as people who had learned what love truly means. They took a photo together with their children, smiling, relaxed, genuine. No filters. No captions. Just peace. That photo went viral, not because of scandal, but because it radiated healing. One comment summed it up perfectly. "This is what real maturity looks like. Pain, grace, and love, all in one frame." So what do we take from this story? That sometimes, the end of a relationship isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of understanding. Audrey and Jeremy's journey wasn't about betrayal or failure. It was about two people outgrowing who they were, and finding strength to walk separate paths with compassion. It's easy to judge. Harder to empathize. But when we look deeper, we see ourselves, our fears, our struggles, our longing to be seen and loved. Maybe that's why their story touched so many. Because beneath the fame, the cameras, the Instagram posts, they were just human. And so, this is where the story ends. Not with a fight, but with forgiveness. Audrey Roloff, once known for her perfect family posts, has found peace in imperfection. Jeremy Roloff, once broken by heartbreak, has found strength in acceptance. They may never walk hand in hand again, but they will always share something deeper. The bond of two souls who loved, lost, and learned. Maybe that's the most honest love story of all. Because love doesn't always last forever. But its lessons, its warmth, its memories, they do. This is not a story of endings. It's a story of becoming. And that, my friends, is the final chapter of Audrey and Jeremy Roloff's incredible journey.